Sushi is incredibly popular in the United States, having become a mainstream food enjoyed by a wide range of people. Its popularity has grown significantly over the past few decades, and it now generates billions of dollars in revenue annually. There are thousands of sushi restaurants across the country, ranging from high-end establishments to casual takeout spots and even grocery store sushi counters. While sushi was once considered a niche or exotic food in the United States, it's now become a staple of many American diets. But how authentic is American sushi? Chef Anthony Bourdain once said, "Food is everything we are. It's an extension of nationalist feelings, ethnic feelings, your personal history, your province, your region, your tribe, your grandma. It's inseparable from these from the get-go." There's no doubt that food is closely tied to identity and culture, a topic we explore in another video. But how should we understand the idea of authenticity in the context of food? What, in other words, makes a dish authentic or inauthentic? In the context of cuisine, we might think of authenticity as the genuineness of a dish as it's traditionally prepared in its place of origin. In this context, authenticity might be thought of as encompassing several key dimensions or elements. First, authenticity in food and cuisine often refers to the use of traditional ingredients and preparation methods that are characteristic of a particular culture or region. This includes adhering to recipes, cooking techniques, and ingredients sourcing as practiced historically in the cuisine's place of origin. An authentic Italian pizza, for example, is expected to use San Marzano tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, and to be baked in a wood-fired oven. Second, authenticity involves maintaining a connection to the cultural and historical roots of a dish. It's about preserving the culinary heritage and traditions passed down through generations. For example, traditional Japanese sushi, with its specific rice preparation and the use of fish, reflects centuries of Japanese culinary tradition and culinary practices. Third, authentic dishes often reflect the specific regional characteristics of their place of origin, including the use of local ingredients, climate, and agricultural practices. For example, authentic Mexican mole varies by region, with each region using its local ingredients reflecting regional cooking styles. Authenticity also encompasses respect for the original culture and the context of the cuisine. This means acknowledging the origins and avoiding unnecessary alterations that dilute the dish's cultural significance. For example, authentically cooking Thai green curry would require the use of traditional ingredients like Thai basil and fish sauce rather than substituting them with more readily available but less authentic ingredients. Finally, authenticity is a subjective and deeply personal experience connected to familial and community traditions. It reflects the familiar and cherished tastes, smells, and techniques that individuals associate with the food. Indeed, family recipes passed down through generations are often considered the most authentic by those who cherish them, regardless of broader culinary trends. But this creates a challenge. A family recipe passed down through generations may be considered authentic to those that share that heritage, even if it varies slightly from other versions. But how much variation can be introduced while still being considered authentic? And authentic for whom? Who, in other words, gets to decide what recipe is authentic, or when food is so different from its original, it's inauthentic? These subjective experiences give rise to a variety of challenges to the authenticity of food. Especially in a globalizing world, definitions of authenticity frequently evolve. While staying true to traditional methods and ingredients is one aspect, authenticity can sometimes embrace the adaptation of dishes in new contexts while respecting their culinary roots. Adaptations of Indian curry and British cuisine, for example, might be considered authentic in their own right if they respect the culinary techniques and flavors of traditional Indian cooking, even if they include local British ingredients. Indeed, culinary traditions evolve over time due to a variety of influences, including migration, trade, colonization, globalization, and others. As a result, what we consider authentic today may differ significantly from historical practices. A great example of this is Italian pasta dishes, which are now very different from what they were before the introduction of tomatoes from the Americas in the 16th century. Within a single country, regional variations can lead to multiple authentic versions of a dish. This diversity complicates the idea of a singular authentic recipe. In India, for example, curry dishes vary widely from one region to the other, each claiming authenticity based on local traditions and ingredients. but which, if any, is the authentic representative of Indian curry. On the flip side of this trend, mass consumption and the commercialization of food has often led to the standardization of recipes to appeal to a broader audience, frequently diluting the authenticity of traditional dishes. Chain restaurants often modify traditional dishes to suit local tastes, such as Americanized versions of Chinese food like General Tso's chicken or pad thai in Thai restaurants. Globalization has facilitated the blending of culinary practices, resulting in fusion cuisines that often combine different elements from different cultures. While innovative, these dishes often challenge traditional notions of authenticity. The California roll, a sushi roll that was invented in Canada and combines traditional Japanese techniques with ingredients like avocado, which is not native to Japan, is a great example of this. Is the California roll authentic? And if so, what is it authentic to? There are lots of other examples of fusion cuisines. Popularized in Los Angeles, Roy Choi's Kogi tacos combine Korean and Mexican cuisines. Other popular fusion cuisines include Tex-Mex, which combines Mexican and American cuisines, Nikkei cuisine, which combines Japanese and Peruvian culinary traditions, and modern California cuisine, which combines various Mexican, Asian, and Mediterranean influences and emphasizes the use of fresh local ingredients with a focus on health-conscious dishes. And finally, the problem of cultural appropriation also appears in food. Cultural appropriation occurs when elements of a minority culture are adopted by members of a dominant culture without proper understanding, respect, or acknowledgement of their significance. This often leads to a commodification and misrepresentation of the appropriated culture. And the line between cultural exchange and cultural appropriation can often be difficult to draw. Nevertheless, we can identify several elements that help differentiate between the two. The first is recognition. When dishes coming from minority cultures are adopted by dominant cultures, are the original creators and their cultural significance recognized or overlooked? Is the cultural heritage and contributions of the minority group celebrated or erased? If it's the former, it's probably cultural exchange. If it's the latter, it's probably cultural appropriation. Next, what about the authentic roots of foods and cultures that are being represented in the new dish? Cultural exchange usually celebrates and respects the diverse influences and new ingredients and cuisines and seeks to draw and celebrate the specific elements of each culture. Cultural appropriation, by contrast, often involves altering traditional recipes and methods to suit the tastes and preferences of the dominant culture, which can misrepresent or dilute the authentic culinary practices. Finally, the power dynamics between the appropriating and originating cultures often exacerbate the problem. Under a model of cultural appropriation, the dominant culture's ability to popularize and profit from the other culture's food highlights existing inequalities. A model of cultural exchange, by contrast, usually seeks to empower both cultures in the exchange. The balance between cultural exchange that takes place in the fusion cuisine and the cultural appropriation that often takes place in standardized commercial production is an important element in the debate over authenticity. But we can also take a more philosophical approach that also sheds some interesting light on the questions of authenticity and representation. And so for the final portion of this video, I want to turn to the work of French social theorist Jean Baudrillard and his work on simulacra and the hyperreal. Baudrillard introduces the concept of simulacra and the hyperreal to describe how reality and representations of reality can blur in contemporary society. Applying these concepts to the problem of authenticity in food and culture offers a compelling lens through which we can understand how culinary traditions are perceived and experienced. According to Baudrillard, simulacra are copies or representations of things that either had no original or that no longer have an original. According to Baudrillard, simulacra pass through 4 stages. The first stage is the faithful copy, where the representation closely resembles and accurately reflects the original. Think of traditional Italian margherita pizza made in Naples using authentic ingredients like San Marzano tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, and basil, and cooked in a wood-fired oven. This pizza closely adheres to the original recipe and preparation methods, providing a faithful representation of the traditional dish. In the second stage, the copy begins to distort or pervert reality. While it still resembles the original, it introduces elements that alter the true representation. A margherita pizza made in an American pizzeria that uses canned tomatoes and pre-shredded mozzarella and is cooked in a gas oven might represent this second step. While it still looks like a margherita pizza, the substitutions and ingredients and methods introduce distortion of the original dish. In the third stage, the copy masks the absence of a profound reality. It pretends to be a faithful representation, but hides the fact that there is no original to base it on. Think of a frozen margarita pizza available in supermarkets. The mass-produced frozen product pretends to offer the authentic experience of a traditional margarita pizza, but lacks the craftsmanship, fresh ingredients, and culinary traditions of the original. Consumers buy into the convenience and appearance of authenticity without experiencing the true dish. And in the final stage, pure simulacrum exists, where the copy has no relationship to any reality whatsoever. It becomes its own entity, a hyperreal simulation that is accepted as real. To continue our example, think of margarita pizza flavored snack foods like potato chips or microwave pizza rolls. These products have no actual relationship with a true margarita pizza, but use the name and some flavor components to create a new product that is consumed as if it were authentic. The original dish is so far removed from the snack it is a hyperreal version, accepted as its own form of reality. According to Baudrillard, the progression through the stages of simulacra leads to the emergence of the hyperreal, a condition in which what is real and what is fiction are seamlessly blended together so that there is no clear distinction between where one ends and the other begins. In hyperreality, simulations and copies are perceived as more real than reality itself. In other words, as copies become more detached from their originals, they eventually create a new reality that is accepted as real. The pure simulacrum, which has no basis in reality, embodies the concept of hyperreality. In this stage, simulations become self-sustaining and self-referential, creating a reality that is experienced as more real than the actual world. This sounds much more complicated than it actually is. Television shows, movies, and advertisements often create idealized versions of life that may start as a faithful representation, but eventually become exaggerated or entirely fabricated. Reality TV shows, where participants and situations are manipulated to create more dramatic and engaging content, lead viewers to perceive these hyperreal scenarios as genuine representations of real life. The curated realities and use of filters and editing software to enhance and shape images on social media is another example of the hyperreal. And in the context of food, the culinary progression from traditional authentic dishes to mass-produced commercial food products like margarita pizza-flavored snacks, which have no real connections to the traditional dish, but are accepted and consumed as if they were authentic, is another example. Other food-related examples of this phenomenon might include themed restaurants that create an entire dining experience based on the theme, such as medieval banquets or space-age eateries, where the food and the environment are highly stylized and often bear little resemblance to the actual historical or cultural context they claim to represent. Or think of food trends popularized on social media like TikTok and Instagram, where visually appealing dishes are often designed more for their photographic qualities than for their adherence to traditional culinary practices or flavors. Hyperreal culinary experiences create new perceptions of authenticity that may be entirely disconnected from the original cultural context. Hyperreality is prevalent in contemporary media and culture, where images and representations are created and consumed in ways that blur the lines between reality and simulation. Advertisements, films, and social media often present an idealized or fabricated version of reality that influences people's perceptions and experiences, and indeed their very identity. In a hyperreal consumer society, brands and products are often valued more for their symbolic meanings and images than for their actual utility or reality. The experience of the brand becomes more significant than the product itself. And as hyperreal versions of food become more prevalent, people's expectations of certain dishes can shift. For instance, someone who's only experienced a mass-produced version of ethnic foods might be surprised or even disappointed by the authentic version due to their altered perceptions. Further, the commercialization and globalization of food can lead to the commodification of culinary traditions, where the original cultural significance and context are lost in favor of marketable and easily consumable versions. The commodification of food as a cultural product in the global marketplace can lead to the hyperrealization of cuisines, and as cultural dishes are packaged, marketed, and consumed in ways that prioritize profit and mass appeal, thereby creating a cycle where hyperreal versions of food become the accepted norm. And this raises important questions about the value of preserving traditional culinary practices in an increasingly globalized and commodified world, an issue we return to later in the course. But that's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.